I Know What You Did Last Summer. Released in 1997 when the horror slasher craze got revived thanks to the movie Scream. It tells the story of four friends whom one night make a fateful pact. A pact that would completely destroy their lives. One night while celebrating their graduation, they accidentally run over a pedestrian, where they decide to dispose of the body and swear to never speak of the event ever again. 1 year later, Julie, who was one of the unfortunate friends, receives a sinister letter, simply saying, "I know what you did last summer," where she reunites with her other friends to try and make sense of the troubling letter. And from there, things go from bad to worse as a fisherman killer seems to be terrorizing the town with a hook weapon of choice, who is one by one going after our main characters and them close to them, in this exciting slasher movie from the 90s, which showcased the talents of Jennifer Love Hewitt, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Ryan Phillippe and Freddie Prinze Jr. I Know What You Did Last Summer. Not as remembered or as celebrated as much as Scream, but still a worthy addition in the slasher film genre. A lost gem, if you will. So today we are going to try and remember the events of last summer by looking into 10 things that you may not know about this movie. So let's check it out. Number 10. I Know What You Did Last Summer is based on a novel. Yeah, who would have thought that I Know What You Did Last Summer wasn't an original story? It was in fact based off a book, published in 1973, actually making it predate John Carpenter's Halloween. The I Know What You Did Last Summer novel was written by author Lois Duncan, who had a long career of writing horror thriller novels aimed at young adults. There are significant differences between the book and movie. For example, the group of friends run over a young boy riding his bike on a mountain road after attending a party. Julie is still in high school, unlike the movie where she is now attending college. She receives her first I Know What You Did Last Summer letter in her locker at school. And the killer himself doesn't use the iconic hook that was seen in the movie, but instead shoots his victims with a gun. In fact, after the Barry character gets shot, he is left paralyzed. And the killer turns out to be Bud, the new kid in school who actually had manipulated Julie and formed a relationship with her, as he was the brother of the young cyclist whom was run over, and found out that Julie and her friends killed his brother via a florist who informed him that Julie had anonymously purchased some grieving flowers for his brother. So I guess the moral of the story is don't trust florists, because they will blab on you no matter what. Okay, everyone got that? The novel is actually a pretty good read. Unlike the movie, which is a slasher horror, the book is more of a suspense thriller. Even if it does have a corny as hell ending where Ray does this "I can't live without you" speech to Julie at the end of the book. It's still a good read. Number 9. Freddie Prinze Jr. originally auditioned to play the villain. In I Know What You Did Last Summer, Prinze Jr. plays Ray, the somewhat cowardly boyfriend to the Julie character, who by the end of the movie must take a stand and gain some courage in order to help defeat the evil that's been stalking him and his friends. Well, originally Prinze Jr. auditioned for the villain, and not the villain of I Know What You Did Last Summer, but the villain for Scream. Yep, it was when he auditioned to play the role of Billy Loomis that he met I Know What You Did Last Summer's scriptwriter, Kevin Williamson. The part incidentally went to Skeet Ulrich, but Williamson insisted that he should audition for his next movie he's working on, to which he did, where he was up against Jeremy Sisto, who was also auditioning for the part too. But Prinze Jr. got the role where he would go on to work with Buffy actress Sarah Michelle Gellar, where the two would go on to get married in real life and star in the Scooby-Doo movie together. And the less we say about that, the better. Number 8. I Know What You Did Last Summer is inspired by a real urban legend. Freddy had his glove, Jason had a machete, and Ghostface had a knife. So to add to a long list of terrifying movie boogeymen weapons, the I Know What You Did Last Summer fisherman killer uses a hook, which is actually quite intimidating, as it's a fresh approach for a sometimes tired slasher genre. Yep, not since Dustin Hoffman in Hook had a hook looked so terrifying in movies. However, the choice of giving the killer a hook was based off a real-life urban legend. The creepy bedtime story of the hook has been around since the 1950s, where a serial killer with a hook killed a teenage couple while they were making out in a car. The urban legend gained so much fruition that it was even brought up in an advice column in Dear Abby in 1960. To be fair, the urban legend is actually mentioned in the movie, but basing a movie killer on an actual real-life urban legend is a clever touch. Number 7. Helping Hand from a Fan. I Know What You Did Last Summer features the famous scene where Jennifer Love Hewitt spins around in fear and desperation and screams out, "What are you waiting for, huh?" It's a powerful moment that shows the Julie character is both terrified and is also at her wit's end with the evil that's tormenting her. However, the classic scene came to be because a horror movie fan visited the set and informed Hewitt that she should do the dramatic yell as it would look great and have a great impact. Hewitt originally didn't want to do it, thinking that it would come across as too over the top and melodramatic, but did it anyway, and thus the effective scene was created. Number 6. 2 different soundtracks were released. I Know What You Did Last Summer did something that movies don't tend to do and released 2 different movie soundtracks commercially. One featured all the commercial pop songs that were used in the movie, for example, songs from bands like Korn and Offspring, whereas the other soundtrack used music that was purely composed by the movie's composer, John Debney. Debney is a great composer who has composed wonderful music for other movies such as Hocus Pocus, Cutthroat Island, Liar Liar, End of Days, Sin City, Iron Man 2, and funny enough, the Doctor Who TV movie, as he provides a haunting score for I Know What You Did Last Summer, and it's full of sadness and mystery. So it's nice to see his music was given a fair go and got its own release. Look, can we add the fact that I Know What You Did Last Summer was technically scored by a Doctor Who composer to the list? Number 5, the movie was a box office hit. I Know What You Did Last Summer was made for $17 million, with it being filmed mostly on location at Sonoma County, California and Southport, North Carolina, where it would go on to make a whopping $125.2 million at the box office. However, it wasn't a completely glorious victory, as the reviews for the movie weren't the best, with many critics automatically comparing it to Scream, which instantly puts it at a disadvantage, with critics determining that it's just not as good as Scream. Roger Ebert went on to say the best shot in this film is the first one. Not a good sign. But no one was more displeased with the film than the original author of the I Know What You Did Last Summer novel, Lois Duncan, mainly due to the dramatic changes made to her original story, even claiming that while the movie was being made, she was deliberately not filmed in with what was happening, as she feels that the filmmakers knew that she wouldn't like what they had done to her story, or as she called it, her little masterpiece. But as with most movies that I discuss on this show that got trashed when they came out, the movie still appealed to the teenage demographic, and those who grew up watching it still have a fond love for it. But underneath all the moaning and complaining, you've got to ask, just who was I Know What You Did Last Summer made for? Well, it was made for the teenage and young adult demographic. It wasn't really made for Roger Ebert or all those other 50-something-year-old snooty critics, who, by the way, have to dislike the movie because Citizen Kane is a masterpiece. Number 4, movie poster controversy. Anyone who is familiar with my show would know that I often like to explore movie posters. However, sadly, the I Know What You Did Last Summer movie poster seemed to cause quite the stir, as the movie's poster originally declared that I Know What You Did Last Summer was from the creator of Scream, which is an obvious reference to the fact that both I Know What You Did Last Summer and Scream share the same scriptwriters. However, Miramax, who owned the rights to Scream, were not happy and put up a lawsuit claiming that Wes Craven was the director of Scream, and thus didn't direct I Know What You Did Last Summer. In fact, I Know What You Did Last Summer's director was Scottish director Jim Gillespie, who also directed the Sylvester Stallone movie Detox. So as a result, Columbia Pictures, who were distributing I Know What You Did Last Summer, had to remove the sentence from the poster, so audiences won't think they are walking into another Wes Craven movie. Number 3, original ending. It seems that I Know What You Did Last Summer was made with sequels in mind. After all, an onslaught of sequels seems to be the slasher movie trend, so the movie was to end on something of a cliffhanger, something that movie audiences would want to return to see what happened next. The original ending was going to be a lot more lackluster than the one we got, with Julie sitting at her computer when an email pops up with the sentence, "I still know." But it was decided the ending wasn't exciting enough, and wouldn't leave as much of an impact as the production wanted. So at the last minute, a new ending was filmed, the one we all know where Julie gets attacked in the shower. Great suspenseful ending, but in a cheap move we find out in the second movie was just a dream. Which brings me to my next point. Number 2, sequels. Yes, most of you are aware that the following year, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer came out. But whenever I talk to movie fans, they often seem shocked and surprised to know that there was actually a third entry, in the form of the straight-to-DVD I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer, which clearly no one watched and thus they won't always know that one. Yet, when it comes to sequels, unlike Halloween, Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and even Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer just didn't work as a movie franchise. The second movie sees the action take place on a tropical island on the Bahamas. Yep, not since Jaws the Revenge have we seen a horror franchise do a location trip to the tropical location, even though the movie was actually filmed in Jalisco in Mexico. A move which I guess was done to keep things fresh and interesting. And one of the killers this time round is the teenage son of the killer in the first movie, who is also back, meaning this time round there are 2 killers. But at least having a teenage killer feels like it's paying homage to the original book. But apart from that, it doesn't have the unique feel of the first movie. It just felt uninspired and like we've seen it all before. Apart from the location switch, it felt like it didn't bring anything new to the table. Apart from Jeffrey Combs, of course. And, Jack Black? Weird. Even by memory, this sequel came and went and no one really talked about it. Then in 2006 we got the as mentioned straight-to-home release I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer, which now uses a completely different cast with new characters in the story, with the exception of the serial killer Ben Willis, who is now played by a different actor. What's interesting about this third entry is that it treats the events of the first 2 movies as if they themselves are urban legends, which is an interesting take, but still the movie failed to impress and there wasn't much of a demand to see this third entry, and the franchise has since gone nowhere. Number 1, I Know What You Did Last Summer exists because of Scream. Kings and I Know What You Did Last Summer shares a lot of similarities with Wes Craven's Scream, which came out 1 year prior. Both see a bunch of teenagers getting killed off by a deranged serial killer. And both have a whodunit mystery. I guess you could say a callback to Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. Scream was more self-aware and more of a parody on horror movies and movies in general, whereas I Know What You Did Last Summer took its subject matter a lot more seriously, and both propelled the teen slasher genre into the late 90s. However, both movies were written by Kevin Williamson, who also wrote the Dawson's Creek TV series, as well as another late 90s teen horror movie, The Faculty, which had more of a body invasion alien approach. In fact, Williamson actually wrote the script for I Know What You Did Last Summer before he worked on the Scream script, and was trying to get I Know What You Did Last Summer out there, but no one was interested in it. But thankfully, after the huge success of Scream, the slasher genre had been rejuvenated, and thus Columbia Pictures showed interest in the script, and the rest was history. If you're a fan of the horror slasher genre, then I say definitely check out I Know What You Did Last Summer. It doesn't have the impact of Scream, but it's not meant to. It's just meant to be its own thing. So when you watch it with Scream completely out of your head, and then you'll see that it's a perfectly enjoyable film. Anyway, I'm Minty, and I literally have no idea what I did last summer. True story. See ya!